This video is brought to you by our amazing supporters over at Patreon. Hey everyone, it's Ben from Bored to Bits, and in this video we're going to start actively working with our forest system and finding the right balance for it. So in this first video we're going to take kind of that planning approach, looking at the math of what's going on and kind of getting a sense of where we can make changes that are going to best solve the issues we're having, in this case the fact that our rabbits and our wolves are dying off. So to start, I want to talk about a little bit of setup I did within the forest system itself, mostly just so that right now we have the forest kind of incrementing based on time. Every second it basically increases by 1 tick and progresses, and I wanted to be able to control that manually so that I can really kind of pause and see what's going on a particular turn and figure out what's going on. So I did make a couple changes in the code that I wanted to show you for that. So all in our forest system here, the first thing that I did was in our run game loop, I took out all of the stuff that isn't involved specifically in the coroutine itself, meaning I kept this while loop here, and I kept the yield return so that it will, loop every frame, but all of the guts, the system mechanics, I took out and extracted into a separate method called increment tick. So if you look down here, increment tick is all of the checking for multiplying and having units act. All of that happens as well as actually increasing that number of ticks in the session. That all happens within here. And that's just been, like I say, extracted to this. So that now the reason that I'm doing that is so that I can not only use this inside of the coroutine, but also call it manually. So the second thing that I did was that up here at the top, I created an update method. And in there, I simply did an if check to say if the spacebar is being pressed down, then we'll increment tick as well. So that just gives me the opportunity. I can just press the button, move forward 1 step, but we're not going to keep going and things won't, continue changing and snowballing until I want them to. Lastly, in our start method, I simply commented out the start coroutine so that we're not even starting with that, running every single frame. Instead, it only happens when I choose to increment it manually. So with those in place, the next thing I did is I took a look at the settings of our units. So I went into profiles and started looking through these. I'll actually put it up as a chart here just so we can see it a little bit more conveniently. But basically I wanted to look at, what our starting setup is and see if there's any information I can glean out of this. The fact that what our multiply frequencies are, what our hungers are, how are these, get a sense of like where things are going to be changing so that I can have a little bit better sense of what to look for. And there's a few takeaways from these settings right now. The first is that we notice that our multiply frequencies are all multiples of 5. So grass at, every 5 turns, rabbits every 10 turns, wolves every 20. So we know that there's going to be changes on every multiple of 5 in our turns because that's when things are going to multiply. The second thing to note is how the hunger increases and how it and the nutrition values of the things that are being eaten, because these are going to tell us when things are going to eat or give us at least a little bit better sense of when things are going to eat. So right now rabbits, they start off at 0 hunger and then increases by 5 until it hits that 25 eat threshold. And so at that 25, it's going to try to get nutrition from grass, which will give it 20. So what this basically, the math that happens there is that after 5 turns from it first being created, the rabbit's going to want to eat. And then every roughly 4 turns after that, it should want to eat again. Similarly for wolves, are going to eat after 10 turns once they hit 50 hunger. And because they get 40 nutrition when they eat, it's going to be roughly every 8 turns, assuming they're eating rabbits. If they start eating other wolves, then that changes a little bit. But that just gives us a little bit of a clue as to where we're going to see things change. And with that, what we can then do is start actually running through our program. And I used a pretty naive system for doing this right now, which is that I'm basically just actively hitting play, stepping through each step and looking to see where does information change. So for example, right here, it pops up in our console on turn 5 that both the grass multiplies and our rabbits eat some of the grass. So we get a net change of about 8 grass are created. And then I just started, charting that. So I created a spreadsheet in Google Docs and just started charting out basically like here's the starting values. And then at turn 5, it changed so that we went up to 28, made a quick note of what's happening, and basically stepped through this saying, what happens each turn, if something did indeed change, marking those down and seeing what happened there. So we see, 10 rabbits eat on turn 9 because that's that 5 plus 4 turns that we were talking about there. Then on turn 10, multiple of 5, now we get grass and rabbits multiplying, plus the wolves get hungry and eat. So there's all these changes happening. And what this chart, or what this spreadsheet gives us the chance to do, is to create a graph to see and visualize where those changes are happening. So once I have this all filled out, and it's worth noting, I didn't actually fill out like every single line what the changes were. When something changed, I marked it on this chart, and then afterward I just filled in copies of the things. And the reason for that is really just how Google's charting system works. If you really wanted to, you could just do this with the particular turns that something changed and note those changes. But what this does for me is it allowed me to create this step chart. And the step chart is actually kind of important that I used that versus a line chart, because a line chart might give you the sense if you're having smooth lines, say from one step to the next, that there's this sort of gradual change happening, and that could be misleading. For example, over here in this chart where I go from 6 rabbits at this point here, if this will highlight conveniently for me, up to 9 here, it might seem like over a certain number, in this case this is just a 1-turn step, but it might seem like if you had multiple steps going from 6 to 9 that you might have a turn where it's 7 rabbits and then 8 rabbits and then 9 rabbits, when in actuality it is this hard increment. It's either 6 or it's 9. And that can be important because if you're trying to kind of run some math, it might be misleading to think, oh, there's 8 rabbits right now, when really there's only 6. Or there's only 9. And so it's important that when you're trying to kind of get information out of your data, that your data isn't misleading. So because of the nature of how our system works, that it does these sharp steps from one number to another, you want to make sure that you're using a graph that reflects that. But now that we have this graph, we do get some additional information. The first thing we see is that our grass, which we can see it just barely up here because it's basically starts at the top of the graph as I've kind of windowed it here, we always have plenty of grass. Grass has no issues, and that's because it is basically doubling its population every time that it multiplies, and so there is more than enough grass. We can even see down here the system completely dies out of animals at turn 65, but we have almost 30,000 grass at that point, so grass is not an issue. Now, the other thing to note about this is that grass has no negative effect. Grass is only food for rabbits, so it only ever would be a positive thing. So at the moment, we don't really have to worry about pulling it back. However, if there was, say, a situation where there's too much grass, could start a wildfire and, kill off things, then we might need to actually be more concerned about this kind of rampant growth that we have. And we may eventually want to pull back on that. But for right now, where our purpose is to just keep these animals alive, we know that our grass isn't probably the issue right now. So we know that we can leave that alone. And it's really paring away these possible issues that is the benefit of doing this sort of planning approach. Let me drag this over so we can see a little bit longer here. The other thing that we see from this is that our wolves, our yellow, appear to be pretty okay. Now, the wolves have the longest kind of wait time, both between when they multiply and when they get hungry. So they're going to have a much slower change, which we see here in that, for about almost 20 turns, nothing even changes for the wolves, and then all of a sudden their population jumps up a bit. And so what this information tells us here is that the wolves are actually doing okay. Their trend line is kind of growing right up until the rabbits run out, and then their population drops pretty precipitously and then kind of slowly peters out from there. But from what we can see, and this is obviously just a very small sample and a very short time window, but at least right now, the wolves seemed to be growing okay, and then when the rabbits died is when things went wrong for them, which makes sense because they need the rabbits to eat, to stay healthy, and to multiply. Otherwise, they have to start cannibalizing themselves, and that's going to naturally just deplete their own population. So this makes sense, but it also kind of reaffirms this idea that the wolves, their settings are probably okay. It's the issue here really lies in the fact that the rabbits are dying off so quickly. The rabbits just barely, they get 1. We go from 10 rabbits to 11 rabbits, and that's really that's the only actually increase, or net increase I should say, that we get. and then from there the rabbits just kind of deplete and deplete from there. So this is really where we can tell that our issue is. And it's all happening within about 30 steps of our system, which in a system that we want to be, you know, static and run potentially perpetually, that is not a very long time at all. So what this gives us this information that the problem is with the rabbits. And the other information that we get from running this, and if we look at our notes, is that our rabbits run out because they're being eaten. We see at turn 31 is this moment where we hit this sort of point of no return, where we get down to 2 rabbits because wolves are eating rabbits, and at this point the rabbits can no longer multiply. And then at turn 34 is where the wolves eat the very last of the rabbits, and the rabbits are completely extinct at this point within the system. So the issue is not that rabbits are, you know, going hungry. That's not that they're running out of grass. It's that it's a supply and demand problem, that the supply of rabbits is not enough for the wolves that we have. So this is where we really get this key nugget of information of what we can do to help fix our system, which is that it seems to be that either we need to decrease the amount that wolves are eating or increase the amount that our rabbits are multiplying. We need to have more rabbits in our system so that the wolves can be satisfied, but the rabbits don't die out. And so I lean definitely more toward solving that rabbit problem because, again, the wolves seem pretty steady. They seemed okay based on the settings that they had. The rabbits seem to be really what's setting this off and precipitating this problem. So it really seemed, and we have plenty of grass for the rabbits to eat, so it seems like increasing our rabbit population is going to be the best option that we have to solve this problem. One other thing I wanted to note before we wrap up this video is that right now, like I said, this is a very naive system. I'm really just kind of manually taking notes of all these, and if I wanted to do this multiple times, or if I wanted to do this over a longer stretch, this wouldn't be a sustainable system. A much better way would be to build a tool to do this. However, building a separate tool to kind of track this information and chart it out and things is really almost the topic of another, at least mini-series, if not another entire series, which is probably a follow-up I will do to this system series sometime in the future. But for right now, I'm just sticking with the manual logging system. So with that, we have this information, we have a direction that we can go in. I don't know if it's the correct one. When you're working in systems like these, you're really kind of dipping your toe into the idea of chaos theory, and that, you know, one change to one part of your system may have effects that you really didn't expect. But it seems like it's a promising start, and so in our next video what we can do is we can start making adjustments to the rabbit settings and kind of incrementally and iteratively seeing how we can fix and balance our system. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.